So there have been a lot of new developments in the fish room over the last couple months, but the first one I wanted to show you guys is my new cherry shrimp breeding colony. I got these shrimp just a little under 2 months ago, and as you can see from this shot, there are already a ton of little shrimplets. You can see 2 on the plant right there, and a couple on the sponge filter as well alongside this adult. They're super tiny, and when they're first born, it's really incredible. Well, when they first hatch, it's really incredible to watch just how quickly they grow. I've found some new shrimplets recently, and it really seems like they must at least double in size every day. So I was really inspired to start this shrimp colony because my local fish store told me that their shrimp breeder recently stopped breeding them. So I am going to see if I can be their new main supplier of cherry shrimp. And so far it's going really well. I added this crushed coral to the tank to help buffer the water because I have trouble with the KH dropping in my tanks and then having a pH crash, which would not be a good thing for these shrimp. But so far, with the help of the crushed coral, it seems like everything's going really well. Got tons of shrimplets like this one. I started out with 10 shrimp, and I would guess now, counting shrimplets, I probably have 50 or 60. So it's been really enjoyable to watch as their population just continues to grow. Moving on from that tank, down below we have our newest crop of Chindongo Saulosi, which is showcasing the amazing capabilities of these Ziss breeder boxes. So on the left we have some Saulosi that I pulled out of a female, and then on the right we have some that I pulled out of a female only a couple days later. But you can tell they grow really fast because the group on the left is significantly larger than the group on the right, and they're only separated in age by a couple of days. Now my cat decided that he has to get in on the video. Okay, Simba. I'm really trying to ramp up the production of Saulosi because I've had a decent number of people reach out to me and ask if they can order them, and it really seems like the supply currently in the market does not meet the demand. It seems like a lot of people want Saulosi, and there aren't enough people breeding them. So I'm going to try to breed as many as I can and just see what level of demand I can find for them. If you have any interest in ordering Saulosi from me, my email will be in the description, and I'm hoping to have my website up and running very soon. And over here you see one larger Saulosi. This was the result of, I pulled a female, and when I tried to strip her, I realized that her babies weren't fully developed. They were just basically little eggs with tails. But once she spat them out, there wasn't really a good way to get her to pick them back up again. And this is the one baby that managed to survive. And he's doing well. The only problem is it's hard to be very efficient in raising fish if you only have one of a given size. So it's obviously a lot better to have a group of about 15, which I have here, and the same thing over here. And I'm really hoping to combine these two groups into a grow out tank because it's going to be challenging to have 2 separate tanks if I'm only raising such a small number of fish in them. Now in the main portion of the tank below the Saulosi, we have a group of baby super red bristlenose, which, as has happened in the previous spawns, we're getting a couple of the albinos as well, which is I guess, a little disappointing, because what I'm noticing with the albinos is, unlike the traditional albinos that I'll see in stores, which have these sort of interspliced white dots throughout their body, which I think are kind of a reflection of what the common bristlenose have with the darkened spots on their body. These, because they're coming from super reds, they pretty much just have smooth monochrome skin. So instead of getting that cool dotted pattern, they're just completely white, which personally I find a little bit boring, but we'll see. Maybe there are customers out there that'll find it cool. Now, the really sad thing about this tank is the cave is in here because what I did was I moved the father with a clutch of eggs from this tank over to this tank. Now, unfortunately, after releasing the babies from the cave, I was working really hard to beef up the male bristlenose. They really struggle with starving in these caves because they go without food for a long period of time hatching the eggs, and then often when they come back out, the female's been eating the whole time, but in that time she's built up new eggs to lay, but the males had no chance to eat, and then they'll spawn again and the male slowly just wastes away and dies. Now, unfortunately, the opposite happened here. I was power feeding the male, trying to get him back to a healthy weight, and one day I came in and found his stomach completely bloated and him sitting dead in the tank. It's really unfortunate because now I have one female here, one female in with the cherry shrimp, and no male to spawn with them. So now what I'm going to have to do is raise these babies until they're old enough to breed before I can produce more. Fortunately, before I lost the male, I was able to build up quite a decent number of babies, as you can see back here as well. But it was disappointing, and I think the real problem is that I don't have wood in the tank. And I did some research, and driftwood, which I do have in with these longfin super reds, is really important for the digestion for the pleco, for bristlenose plecostomus. And I definitely think it was a digestive issue, because when I picked up his corpse, his stomach was just completely bulging out, and it definitely seemed like he was dealing with something like dropsy or constipation. So my plan now is to get more driftwood to go with all my bristlenose, because I hate killing fish and I feel pretty irresponsible for doing it due to a lack of driftwood, which I have been aware for some time is good for plecos, but now I'm deciding to consider it mandatory because I really don't want to lose any more fish. You can see the male longfin right here. Apologies for the horrible focus. It's challenging to film a fish room tour during the day. But we have this cave in here just waiting. I think these plecos are getting very close to spawning. You don't get a good view of the female right now, but I was looking at one of them yesterday, and they do seem to be starting to bulge with eggs, which is a good sign. And I'm guessing whenever the females are ready, the male will be ready to go, and we'll clear out this cave, and hopefully we'll get some longfin super red bristlenose. And those would be the most expensive fish that I've ever bred in my aquariums. Now up here you see the blue Mosaic guppies. This was the male I selected. I really like the yellow on his pectoral fins. I was sort of trying to get a blue and yellow strain going, but they haven't had any babies yet, surprisingly. So we'll see how that develops in the coming weeks. after isolating what I thought was the best male of the blue mosaics, a couple more males really started to catch my eye, and as you can see, we've got a lot of really beautiful fish in this tank. This is the original 20 high that I put my original trio in, which from that original trio we only have this one female remaining, but evidently they have paid off handsomely with significantly more fish than I started with. Now the challenge with these guys is the males are really obvious. If a male doesn't look great, I pull them out, but some of the females just kind of lack any sort of blue. Like you see this female here with a very nice big black tail, but I really want to see some blue in there, because if we look at the original female, which I'll back up for a second while I try to locate her, but the original female has more of that blue mosaic pattern through her tail, and it's just challenging to know how aggressively to cull females, because in my eyes the more babies the better, but if those babies are going to pass on genetics that cause the next generation and not look as good as the parents, then I do need to do a better job of culling, or at least removing them from the breeding group, because the goal is really to produce fish that breed true, because until I know that the parents are going to produce offspring that look like them, it's really hard to command a high price selling them, because I don't want to sell you a fish that looks great and then have you breed it and then find that none of the babies look anywhere near as good as the parents. But I'm pretty happy with how this tank is turning out. The genetics aren't completely pure at this point, but we are getting a lot of nice males, and it's a really fun tank to look at. Now, when I started my cherry shrimp breeding project, I had to relocate the mollies that were in the tank the shrimp are now in to the 125, and it's been a bit of a struggle. I'm not sure why, but the mollies seem to be having some issues with infection, and unfortunately I can't quite figure out what the infection is. I've had a couple mollies die, and I'm trying to find, there's one particular molly that has a bit of a growth on its head. And it's been a little discouraging for me, because I've always thought of mollies as one of the easiest fish to keep, but for some reason in this setup they've been having a little bit of trouble, and I feel bad because I moved them out of their previous setup where they were doing really well to make room for the cherry shrimp, but I had no intention of compromising their health to do that. Here you see one molly that's not looking her best. He's got kind of a sunken belly, and I'm seeing things like this. I'm wondering if it could be internal parasites. If you have any ideas, feel free to leave a comment down below. I checked the pH. The pH is up there at 7.8, so that shouldn't be what the issue is. There are a significant number of males, and as you can see here, they're going to town on the females, but I'm not really sure what the problem is. Maybe I'm just dealing with the weakest genetics dying off, and they'll be fine once they adjust. But for now, I'm a little bit skeptical that the problem is solved, and I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and hopefully they'll start doing better with time. The white clouds seem to be doing really well in here. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten them to have any more babies. I sold a little over 50 of them, but obviously I still have a lot left, but I want to get them breeding before I sell any more, because white clouds are really easy to breed, but if I sell all the white clouds I have, it doesn't matter how easy they are to breed, I won't be able to get any more. So hopefully they'll start spawning soon, and we'll start seeing some babies in here. But if we don't see that soon, I will isolate them to their own tank so that I can guarantee a little more success with breeding them. These are the albino full red guppies. Interestingly, they've been the hardest of the 3 trios I got to breed because they eat their babies so aggressively. But they do breed true, which is really important. I haven't had a single baby come out and not show the full red coloration for the male and the red tail for the female. I did have one come out with sort of a bent spine, but that's kind of to be expected when you get more particular strains like this. I find that you do occasionally get some bent backs and things like that, and you just got to weed them out. But with them eating their babies so aggressively, it's been a challenge to build up their numbers. And I've finally got to a number where I feel like the next time I get a group of babies, I'll finally be able to start selling these. For now, I've just been sort of building up their numbers because I don't want to risk, like I mentioned with the white clouds, you don't want to get down to such a small number of fish that it becomes a question of whether you'll keep them alive, like with my super red bristlenose. But now I feel pretty comfortable with the amount I have, and I think I'll be able to start selling them soon. I've been running into a bit of an issue with the Saulosi, and it's nothing health related. They all seem to be doing great, and I've been seeing a lot of holding females in here. But the problem is, it seems like the majority of babies turn out to be male. And that's a problem because when I'm selling fish, a good balanced male to female ratio is ideal. And maybe if you're selling to someone with a show tank, higher male density is positive because the blue is so nice to look at. But when I'm trying to breed and sell these fish, multiple males really does me no good. I'd be better off with 20 females and 1 male than any other ratio with significantly more males. But of course, with my luck, I'm now stuck with probably 30 males and I would guess 15 to 20 females. And basically what I have to do is just watch in this left corner. Anytime a female is holding, she tends to go hide in this corner. I'll watch closely for her, and then as gently as possible, I'll net her out and strip her for her babies. And then, as I showed you, put them in this tank down here. But I'm interested to hear if anyone else is breeding Chindongo saulosi and has had a similar issue with too many males coming out of spawns. I don't know if it has something to do, it's very possible it has something to do with water chemistry or temperature that I'm not familiar with, but it is interesting and a little bit inconvenient because it's really challenging to breed a cichlid when you have a million boys and only a couple girls. I wanted to focus this update on only the most interesting developments in the fish room, but stay tuned for more. I'll be bringing you updates on all the tanks, and we've got a lot more interesting developments to come in the fish room.